Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So move on to the next chapter of our curriculum, which is negation. So this is something we have touched on in previous chapters, but we talk about in more detail now. So some methods of negation apply only to noun sentences. So some methods only apply to verb sentences. And some methods of negation apply to both. So if we start with negating verb sentences, so we start with past tense negation. There's two ways. The first is we use the word lam, and it's followed by the present tense fi'l, and it gives a past tense meaning. So even though we want to negate in the past, with lam you use a present tense because the meaning automatically is translated into the past. The reason why is because lam, if you remember, it means did not, so it automatically gives a past tense meaning, and it causes a present tense to take the lightest form. And this is, if you remember, it's one of those words that turns the present tense into the lightest form. Which, if you remember, if it's an ending combination with a noon on it, you just get rid of the noon. Or if it has if it's not an ending combination, then the last letter, which usually has a dhamma, then we turn that into a sukoon in the lightest version. This type of negation is used for confirmation of negative action. So meaning it's a statement instead of refuting someone. So example is to say that he did not go to school. So we're not refuting, you're just confirming a negative action. The other way of past negation is using ma, followed by a past tense fi'l. And it does not affect the grammar of other words, unlike the lam. And this is used for negation as a refutation. So example is like saying, no, you are wrong, he did not go to school. So it's meaning you're refuting someone. So it's not just negation, but you're refuting them. So ma is used for that. And in terms of present tense negation, there's two ways also. One is the la, and is followed by the present tense fi'l. But again, it does not affect the grammar of other words. And bear in mind, this is a different la from the forbidding. So this la is negation, is not the la of forbidding. And is used for confirmation of a negative action. So it's a statement instead of refuting someone, like example we gave before, he did not go to school. And the second way of negating a present tense is using ma, and you followed by a present tense. And again, it doesn't affect the grammar of other words, but whereas the ma is used for negation, so as if it's used for negation as a refutation, meaning you're refuting something. So you say, no, you are wrong, he did not go to school. So you're refuting something. So ma is used for refuting. And the future tense negation, we use lan, and it's always followed by a present tense fi'l, but the meaning is always pushed into the future. Because if you remember, lan means will not, and it causes a present tense fi'l to take the light form. It's one of those words that causes a present tense to take the light form. And again, if you want to make something into a light version, if it's got an ending combination with the noon, just drop the noon. Otherwise, if it's no ending combination, and most of the time the original form ends with a dhamma, the last harakat has a dhamma, then you just change the dhamma into a fatha to put into the light form. And we need to make a note that lamma, which means not yet, and causes a present tense fi'l to take the lightest form, is also used for negation. But it's not linked to a particular tense, and it depends on the context or the meaning. So whenever it's used, or not yet, and it causes a present tense to take the lightest form as well, it's also used for negation, but it's not linked to a particular tense, and it depends on the context of the sentence in order to determine whether to use lamma or not. But lamma is also used, it's also used to mean when as well. So again, you have to look at context to work out whether it's the lamma, which means not yet, and it causes the present tense to take the lightest form, or whether it means when. Like in most cases in the Quran, I'm pretty sure that it's lamma is used for when in most cases, rather than the not yet. So when we're negating noun sentences now, so there's two tools used for negating noun sentences. You can use ma, which is used for negation as a refutation, so meaning to refute something. And the example is no, like we said before, you are wrong, he did not go to school, so you're refuting something. Or you can use laysa, and laysa is used for confirmation of a negative action. So it's a statement rather than refuting someone. So for example, he did not go to school. So it's just a fact, or you're just stating something without refuting or arguing with someone else. Now these two tools can be used in 4 different ways. So the ma and the laysa, for noun sentences, it can be used in 4 different ways. So the first way is the ma is followed by the mubtada, because remember we're talking about noun sentences. So ma can be followed by the mubtada, and the khabar is in nasab status in this case, as this ma is a sister of kana. So if you remember the fi'l naqis, the chapter on fi'l naqis, when we talked about kana and its sisters, the mubtada is rafa, and the fi'l naqis, even though it's a fi'l, it's treated as a noun sentences. So the fi'l naqis is the mubtada, and the khabar will always be nasab. Whereas normally in noun sentences the khabar is rafa, but with fi'l naqis, incomplete verbs, the khabar is nasab. So in this case, this ma is actually there's different types of ma, and this ma is actually a sister of kana. So it's actually an irregular, incomplete verb. It's a fi'l naqis. So the ma followed by the mubtada, and the khabar is in nasab status. So that's one way this ma can be used. Or the ma can be followed by a mubtada, and the harf of jar bi is added to the khabar, and therefore makes the khabar into the jar status. So that's another way of doing it. And this just, whenever we add the bi, harf of jar, to the khabar, this just increases the negation. So the negation becomes stronger. So ma by itself is a negation, or it's actually a refutation. So you're refuting something. But when you add the bi, harf of jar, to the khabar, then you're refuting it with more intensity. And the third version is laysa, followed by the mubtada, and again the khabar is in nasab status because it's a sister of kana. And again this is for negating. Whereas laysa, the fourth way of using it is laysa followed by the mubtada, and the bi harf of jar is added to the khabar and therefore makes it into jar status. But again, when we see that bi, that is used to increase the negation. So you're increasing the intensity of the negation. Note the mubtada is grammatically unaffected in each case, and this is what I mentioned before. The bi is just added for emphasizing the negation. So you can mean, like, instead of saying no, it becomes not at all. So you're emphasizing. So it does not change the meaning. So for example, with is not added to the meaning of the sentence, because harf of jar bi usually means with, but you don't add the word with in the translation. It's just the harf of jar in this case, in this negating case, is just for increasing and emphasizing the negation. You don't add with. It doesn't give you the meaning with. So the khabar with this type of bi is still a khabar. So it does not become a muta'alliq bil khabar, which normally occurs with a harf of jar in noun sentences. So if you remember, harf of jar in a noun sentence is called muta'alliq bil khabar. Or if you have a special mudaf of time and place which is called the zarf, then that's called a muta'alliq bil khabar also. But in this case, because this bi, this harf of jar, is not a typical harf of jar, it's being used to emphasize the negation, it's called the khabar. It's still the khabar. We won't call it muta'alliq bil khabar. And the ma and the laysa has no effect on the actual muta'alliq bil khabar. It doesn't actually affect the actual one. So an example would be here. So if we had ar-rajulu mu'minun, so the man is a believer. So this is a noun sentence because it starts with an ism, ar-rajulu. And because if you remember, the is, where we say the man is a believer, the is comes when there's a break in the chain. So there's no connection between ar-rajulu and mu'minun. So there's a first break in the chain, so the is comes in between the two. So ar-rajulu mu'minun means the man is a believer, and we say a believer because it's mu'minun, it's not al-mu'minu. If it was al-mu'minu, then we'd say the believer. So the man is a believer. So there's 4 ways of negating this, which means the man is not a believer. So that's what we want to say. So we can either just use ma by itself, So we say ma ar-rajulu mu'minan, and you notice that the khabar of ma is nasab, because the ma is a sister of kana, and any kana and its sisters, so any of the incomplete verbs, the fi'l naqis, causes the khabar to become nasab. That's why mu'minun has become mu'minan, it's taken the nasab status. And the other way of saying the using ma for negation, but we want to emphasize the negation, so we can say ma ar-rajulu bi mu'minin. So the khabar of ma is usually nasab, because of it's a sister of kana, but the harf of jar bi makes it into the jar status. That's why mu'minun, which was the original, has become mu'minin because of the bi. But again, the bi or harf of jar, we won't include in the translation the word with. So we're not going to say, the man is not with the believer or something like that. It's not like that. The be is simply for emphasis. So we would just say the man is, in this case would be the man is absolutely not a believer. So you can use words like that to emphasize the negation. So the other way is using laysa. So you can say laysa ar-rajulu mu'minan. So the khabar of laysa is nasab. That's why mu'minan is nasab. Or if you want to increase the emphasis of the negation, you can say laysa ar-rajulu bi mu'minin. So the khabar of laysa is usually nasab, but because of the harf of jar bi, it makes the mu'minan into a jar status, and therefore emphasizing the negation. And if you remember, we discussed in the irregular or the incomplete verb fi'l naqis chapter what laysa was. So it's a past tense irregular fi'l. So when the mubtada being negated is a pronoun, the independent pronoun is not used inside. Instead, the inside pronoun of laysa is used. So when the mubtada is being negated, which is being negated is a pronoun, then the independent pronoun is not used. Instead, the inside pronoun of laysa is used. So this is the laysa chart which we showed before, which we went through before in that chapter. So you can skip back to that chapter if you want, the incomplete verbs of fi'l naqis, and you can go through the whole laysa discussion again if you want, but I'll quickly go through it. So huwa is laysa, then laysa, then laysu, then laysat, and then laysata, and then lasna. And this is something that I did explain before, that you notice that from hunna onwards it becomes las. So the scene takes a sukoon. The reason why is because if you remember in past tense, the last letter of the fi'l out of the three root letters takes from hunna onwards in the past tense, it takes a sukoon. But because if we put a sukoon on the scene, in laysa the ya already has a sukoon, so it becomes awkward to say. So we drop the ya, so it just becomes las. So lasna, and then that remains the same throughout the whole chart. So it's lasta, lastuma, lastum, lasti, lastuma, lastunna, and the ana version lastu, and nahnu is lasna. And some examples. So lastu mu'minan. So I am not a believer. So meaning in this example, we didn't use we don't need to use the original independent pronoun ana. We can just, instead of that, we just use the ana version of laysa instead. So lastu mu'minan, which means I am not a believer. So lastu is the mubtada, is the ana version, and it's masculine and singular. And the khabar of laysa is always nasab, because it's one of the irregular verbs or incomplete verbs of fi'l naqis. So therefore it's mu'minan, and that's also masculine and singular. So they both match. So the number and gender must match between the laysa form and the khabar. So in this example, both are masculine and both are single. So the gender and the number needs to match in the laysa form. So whatever laysa form you use, whether it's ana, whether it's nahnu, whether it's hiya, whichever laysa form you use, which is, all the forms are mentioned in this table, whichever one you use, it needs to match the khabar in gender and number in order to make sense. So another example would be lasna mu'minatin. So this means those are not believing women. So the lasna is the mubtada and it's the khunna version, which is feminine and plural. And the khabar of laysa is always nasab, and that's why it's mu'minatin. And bear in mind, if mu'minatin, because of the ending combination, the alif and the ta, that could be jar or nasab. It could be jar, because mu'minatin is jar. Jar status will be mu'minatin, and nasab status will be mu'minatin as well. But because we know that's the khabar of laysa, we automatically know that this is nasab. It's not jar. And this mu'minatin is also feminine and also plural, just like the lasna. So therefore the number and the gender between the laysa form and the khabar is the same. And in this example, they're both feminine, they're both plural. So next aspect is absolute categorical negation. So this is only noun sentences, and this means, absolutely not. So it negates all possibility. So when we use absolute negation or absolute categorical negation, then you're saying that that thing is impossible to happen. There's 0% chance. So the way we do it is made up of a la, which is called nafiyatil lil jinsi, and it's followed by an ism, and that ism is light, and it needs to be in nasab status. And both of them together, meaning the lam, and this lam, like I said, it's not the lam of forbidding, and there's different lams. So this is called nafit and lil jins lam. So this lam with the ism, which is light and in nasab status, both of them together make up the mubtada. And if we know, we mentioned that there's 4 reasons for an ism to be light. Now we know 3 reasons. We've discussed 3 so far. So the first was when it's a mudaf, because it has to be light, no al. The second is partly flexible words are light. And this is the third reason. So if it's nafit and lil jins, then the ism has to be light. So an example would be la daira, which means absolutely no harm. There is absolutely no harm. The lam is nafit lil jins, and the daira, we know this is nafit lil jins because of the daira. If you look at the ism daira, it's light, so it's not heavy. Otherwise it will be dairan, and it's in nasab status as well. So when the ism is light, nasab status, and it has a lam in front of it, the ism, then it's nafit lil jins. And the next thing is negating tools for noun sentences and verb sentences together. So meaning these negating tools can be used for noun or verb sentences. So there's 2 tools. One is called the in with illa, and this is more emphatic, so it's more of an emphasizing negation. And the other is ma with illa. So they both create a nothing but meaning. So for example, he is nothing but a human. So when we use in and illa or ma and illa, it creates a nothing but meaning. So he is nothing but a human. So in noun sentences, the meaning is he is nothing but Y. In verb sentences, A did or does nothing but Y. So both have no grammatical effect on other words, and if they are removed, a normal positive sentence remains. So that's one of the ways you know that, when you test it, if you remove the in and illa, then a normal positive sentence remains. So an example would be, what I mean by that is he is nothing but a human. And if we remove nothing but, then you're left with he is a human, which makes sense. And it's the same in Arabic. It will make sense if you remove the in and illa or the ma and illa. So an example in noun sentence here would be in haza illa malakun karimun, which means this is nothing but a noble angel. And the in comes before the mubtada and the illa comes after it. So in haza illa malakun karimun. And if you removed the in and illa, you'd be left with haza malakun karimun, which means this is a noble angel. So it still makes sense if you remove the in and illa. And the second example for noun sentence is ma hiya illa hayatu nad dunya. So it is nothing but our worldly life. And again, if you remove the ma comes before the mubtada and the illa comes after it, If you remove the ma and the illa, then you would be left with it is our worldly life, which still makes sense. So verb sentence example would be ma naqamu illa an aknahumullahu. So which means they resented nothing except that Allah had enriched them. And so again the ma comes before the fi'l and the illa comes after it. And if you removed it, then it would be they resented that Allah had enriched them. So it still makes sense. So the next thing is called, we call a min za'ida. So a za'ida word can attach to an ism without changing its role in the sentence, but it creates an emphasized effect in the meaning. So the min za'ida creates not a single or any. So conditions for min za'ida. So remember the min is harf of jar min. So it comes in negating, if in order to determine whether it's min za'ida, it has to come in a negating sentence or a questioning sentence. The next word will always be common. It can never be proper. And the sentence still makes sense if the min is removed. So we'll give you an example here, or some examples. So in a noun sentence, we could say ma lahu malun, which means he does not have wealth. So that's a normal negating sentence. Ma lahu malun, he does not have wealth. But if we wanted to say he does not have any wealth, then we can use min zaida. So ma lahu min malin. So if you see the harf of jar min has been added to it, so ma lahu min malin, and the min comes before the khabar. So he does not have any wealth. Ma lahu min malin. So min zaida attaches to the min zaida attaches to the mubtada and makes in jar status ma lahu min malin, because the lahu is actually the muta'alliq bil khabar. The lahu and the malun is the mubtada. So ma lahu min malin. So the min zaida attaches to the mubtada, the malun, and makes it in jar status. So the translation will be he does not have any wealth. That's what the min does. And in a verb sentence, we have ma yadribu ar-rajulu ahadan. So the man did not hit anyone. But if we wanted to make it more emphatic and say the man did not hit a single person, so meaning they didn't hit absolutely nobody, so it's more emphasis, we can say ma yadribu ar-rajulu min ahadin. So we added the min. So the min za'ida can attach to the dua, which is the fa'il, or a maf'ul bihi, and in this case the maf'ul bihi is ahadan, which is the detail. If you remember, the maf'ul bihi answers the question who or what. So in this case, who did he hit, or who did he did not hit, and so ahadan is the maf'ul bihi, and it makes it into jar status. So ma yadribu ar-rajulu min ahadin. So man did not hit a single person. So we wouldn't translate it. Normally min means from, so we wouldn't say the man did not hit, from anyone, because this is a min zaida. We'd say not a single person. So as per usual, at the end of every chapter, we advise to go over the vocabulary chapter at the end of this book to become familiar with it. Ideally, at the end of every session, this curriculum is studied so that your Arabic grammar knowledge increases with your vocab knowledge, inshallah.